On our 5th wedding anniversary, my husband handed me a beautifully wrapped gift in front of our guests. Inside were divorce papers. He introduced his young mistress, laughing as if he had won. Everyone gasped, waiting for my reaction. But instead of breaking down, I simply smiled and handed him my own gift. The moment he opened it, his face drained of color. He never saw it coming. And that was just the beginning of his downfall. If someone had told me 5 years ago that my marriage would end in the most humiliating yet satisfying way possible, I wouldn't have believed them. Back then, I thought I had found the love of my life, my forever. Ethan was everything I never knew I wanted: charming, ambitious, and attentive. We met at a client meeting when I was working on a real estate deal. He was a financial analyst, handling the numbers for a property investment firm. Our first conversation wasn't extraordinary, just polite small talk about work and the city, but something about him intrigued me. He was confident but not arrogant, serious yet warm. We exchanged numbers, and before I knew it, we were going out for coffee, then dinner, then spending weekends together. It all moved so fast. Within months, he proposed, romantic, on a rooftop restaurant, the city lights glowing behind us. I remember feeling a rush of excitement, butterflies in my stomach. I said yes, without hesitation. Maybe I should have paused, thought about it more, but I was caught up in the idea of us, of the future we could have. We married just 4 months later, in a small but elegant ceremony, surrounded by friends and family. The first year was beautiful. We traveled, explored new restaurants, and spent hours talking about our dreams. We spoke about buying a bigger house, maybe moving to a different city, and having kids one day. He told me he wanted 2, a boy and a girl. I pictured our life together, growing old, supporting each other through everything. I was happy, but happiness can be deceptive. The changes started small. Ethan became more focused on work, staying late at the office, always tired when he came home. I didn't question it at first. I understood ambition. I had it too. But then his criticisms began. First about little things. How I folded laundry, how I cooked a meal, how I organized our closet. Then about bigger things. How I worked too much, how I should cut down my hours, how I wasn't like his friends' wives. Women who stayed at home, raising kids, making sure their husbands had hot meals ready every night. At first, I laughed it off. You married an independent woman, Ethan, I'd say. You knew what you were getting into. But the conversations didn't stop. He started pressuring me to take on less work, to prioritize home life over my career. I loved my job. I had worked hard to build my reputation as a top real estate agent. I wasn't about to throw that away just because he wanted a wife who played the role of a quiet homemaker. Our fights became more frequent. Some days, he was apologetic, claiming he just wanted what was best for us. Other days, he was distant, as if he didn't even care anymore. Then came the nights when he didn't come home until late, claiming work had kept him busy. I wasn't stupid. I knew something was wrong. I could feel it in the way he avoided eye contact, the way his phone was always face down on the table, the way he suddenly became overly protective of his personal space. I started noticing subtle things, his cologne smelling different, faint traces of perfume that weren't mine, the way he started dressing sharper on random weekdays, almost as if he was trying to impress someone else. But I didn't confront him. Not yet. I wasn't going to scream and accuse without proof. If there was one thing I had learned from my job, it was that evidence wins battles. So I waited. One evening, while Ethan was in the shower, I took a chance and glanced at his phone. I knew his passcode. He had given it to me long ago when trust wasn't an issue. My hands trembled as I unlocked it, but when I saw his messages, my heart stopped. I can't wait to see you tonight. She has no idea. It's actually hilarious. You're everything I've been missing. I scrolled further. Hotel reservations. Dinner receipts from places he'd never taken me. Pictures. That was the night I realized my marriage was over. But instead of confronting him, instead of breaking down, I made a decision. I wasn't going to be the victim. I started preparing, building my own escape plan in silence. I met with a lawyer, gathered every piece of evidence I could. I made sure that when the time came, I wouldn't just walk away. I'd take everything he thought was his. And then came our 5th wedding anniversary. Ethan suggested we have a small celebration with close friends and family. He seemed oddly excited about it, more engaged than he had been in months. Something felt off, but I played along, pretending to be the same devoted wife I had always been. I smiled, laughed, acted oblivious. I made sure he suspected nothing. The day arrived. Our home was filled with guests, champagne glasses clinking, people offering their congratulations. Ethan was at his charming best, playing the role of the perfect husband. Then, just before dinner, he stood up, cleared his throat, and said he had a special gift for me. A beautifully wrapped box was placed in front of me. "Go on," he said, grinning. "Open it." Everyone watched as I unwrapped the box, my fingers steady, my heart hammering in my chest. The moment I lifted the lid, I saw them, divorce papers.
Signed.
"Ready." Gasps filled the room. People exchanged looks of shock and confusion. I looked up at Ethan.
He was smiling, smirking.
"I've found someone younger," he announced, his voice filled with arrogance. "And I deserve to be happy." My eyes flicked to the side. Standing there in a sleek red dress was Lily. 25 years old, blonde, beautiful, a fitness instructor. The woman he had been seeing behind my back. She was smirking, standing by his side like she had won some kind of prize. I could feel the eyes of the guests on me. Some whispering, some frozen in shock. But I didn't react the way Ethan expected. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I simply smiled, pushed the box aside, and reached into my bag. "Oh, Ethan," I said sweetly, "that's so thoughtful. But now it's your turn." I pulled out an envelope and placed it in front of him. "Open it." He frowned but reached for it, tearing it open as Lily leaned in, curious. And then his face turned white. His hands shook. His eyes darted over the papers, scanning every word. For the first time that night, he looked truly afraid. Lily's smile faded. "What is it?" she asked, leaning closer. But Ethan couldn't speak. His lips parted, but no words came out. I crossed my arms, tilting my head slightly. He thought he had won. He had no idea what was coming next. Silence filled the room. Ethan's hands trembled as he gripped the papers, his once confident smirk now completely wiped from his face. His eyes darted across the document, scanning every line, every signature, as if he were desperately trying to find a way out. But there wasn't one. Lily, still standing by his side, leaned in impatient. "What is it?" she whispered, her smile faltering. I folded my arms, tilting my head slightly. "Go ahead, Ethan. Tell everyone what my gift is." He swallowed hard, his face pale. His lips parted, but no words came out. That was the moment I saw it, the shift, the realization that he had lost. That all his arrogance, his betrayal, his twisted little plan to humiliate me in front of our friends and family had backfired spectacularly. "Someone want to tell us what's going on?" My best friend, Claire, broke the silence, her voice laced with suspicion. Others murmured, confused, waiting for Ethan to explain. But he was frozen.
"Fine.
I'd do it for him." I took a slow step forward, my heels clicking against the floor. Then, with a calm smile, I spoke. "This, ladies and gentlemen, is proof that I now own this house, both of our bank accounts and Ethan's investment portfolio. Everything in his name, transferred to me legally." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Lily's eyes widened. "What?" I let out a light laugh. "Oh, there's more," I continued, my voice carrying through the stunned silence. "This also includes an official legal claim for a financial settlement of $450,000, which, thanks to Texas's infidelity laws, Ethan is now required to pay. And if he refuses, well, let's just say the court won't be kind to him." Ethan finally found his voice, but it was shaky, weak. This isn't possible," he muttered, shaking his head. "You can't." "Oh, but I did." I cut in smoothly. "See, while you were busy sneaking around with your mistress, I was busy securing my future. I spoke with the best divorce lawyer in the city. I collected evidence of your affair, Text messages, photos, credit card statements. Everything I needed to ensure you lose everything you took for granted. I stepped closer, lowering my voice just enough for only him and Lily to hear. Did you really think I didn't know? I whispered. Did you think you were smart enough to fool me? Lily took a step back, her expression twisting with panic. You're joking, she said, her voice laced with desperation. Tell me this is a joke. But Ethan couldn't speak. He looked like he was going to be sick. I turned back to our guests, flashing them the same polite smile I had given Ethan minutes ago. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a celebration to continue. I walked over to the bar, pouring myself a glass of champagne. The room was still in stunned silence, but one by one, people started to whisper. A few of Ethan's coworkers shook their heads, disappointed. My friends? They were beaming. Claire mouthed, "Holy sh*T," at me, barely able to contain her grin. Ethan was still standing in place, as if his entire world had just collapsed around him.
Lily?
She was already reaching for her purse, looking like she was ready to flee. That's when I delivered the final blow. Oh, and Lily? I called out. She stiffened but didn't turn around. Just in case you had any big plans with Ethan's money, you might want to rethink that. I sipped my champagne, savoring the moment. Because he doesn't have any left. She turned then, her face twisting in horror. What the hell are you talking about? I shrugged. Well, you weren't exactly discreet. I found out about you months ago. So I made sure that every account Ethan controlled was legally moved into my name. He doesn't have access to a single cent. Lily's expression darkened. You're lying. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and held it up for her to see. $0 in Ethan's personal accounts. Every asset, every property, every investment?
Mine.
She turned to Ethan, her face red with fury. Tell me this isn't real, she hissed. Ethan finally moved, but only to sink into a chair, burying his face in his hands. That told her everything she needed to know. Oh my God, she whispered. You're broke? Ethan didn't respond. Lily let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head.
Wow.
Just wow. And to think I actually thought you were an upgrade. And just like that, she grabbed her purse and walked right out the door. I could have ended it there, but I wanted one last moment. One final conversation. So, as the guests slowly dispersed, I approached Ethan. He didn't even look up. You brought this on yourself, I said quietly. I gave you everything. I trusted you. And in return, you tried to destroy me. He lifted his head slightly, his eyes empty. You were never supposed to fight back. I smiled. That's where you messed up, Ethan. You thought I was weak. Then, without another word, I turned and walked away. That was the last time I saw him that night. But it wasn't the last time he came crawling back. I thought that would be the end of it. That after losing everything, Ethan would crawl away, ashamed and defeated. But I was wrong. A man like him doesn't disappear quietly. For the first few weeks after the party, I didn't hear from him at all. It was like he had vanished. I settled into my new life, moving into a luxury condo in Seattle, a place I had secretly purchased long before the divorce was finalized. My real estate business was thriving, and for the first time in years, I could breathe. There were no more forced smiles, no more pretending to be someone I wasn't just to make my husband feel secure. Then, one evening, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. Unknown number. I hesitated but answered out of curiosity. Hey, it's me. Ethan's voice came through, hesitant, almost fragile. I didn't say a word. I let the silence stretch, waiting for him to dig his own grave. He exhaled. I just wanted to talk. I laughed, actually laughed. Talk? Ethan, you served me divorce papers as an anniversary gift. In front of our family and friends. What could you possibly have to say now? A long pause. Then, in a much softer voice, he said, I made a mistake. I rolled my eyes. Which one? Cheating, lying, or assuming I wouldn't fight back? You know I never wanted things to end like this, he said, ignoring my sarcasm. I was stupid. I let things get out of control. Out of control? I scoffed. Ethan, you planned my public humiliation. You were so confident you'd walk away with everything. And now that you've lost, you want to talk. I don't have anyone else, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper.
Good.
But I wasn't about to let him think he could manipulate me with self-pity. Oh, what happened to Lily? I asked mockingly. She ran off once she realized you had nothing to offer? I heard his breath hitch. That was my answer. She left me, he muttered. Said she wasn't interested in a broke man. Moved on to someone else within a week. That's tough, I said, pretending to sound sympathetic. Really tragic. Sophia, please, he said, his tone shifting. I know I screwed up, but we were together for 5 years. That has to mean something. I took a slow sip of my wine, letting his words hang in the air before I answered. You're right, Ethan. It does mean something. I paused, then added, it means I wasted 5 years of my life on a man who never deserved me. Silence. Then, in a desperate attempt, he said, Can we meet? Just once.
Please.
I just want to see you. I smirked, imagining the broken man sitting on the other end of the call.
No, Ethan.
You saw me the last time you needed to, when I ruined your life. And with that, I hung up. I assumed that would be the last of him. I was wrong again. Days later, he showed up at my new condo. I had just finished a meeting when the front desk called. Miss Carter, there's a man here asking for you. He says his name is Ethan? I sighed. Tell him to leave. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I just want to talk.
Please.
I'm outside. I looked out my window, and sure enough, there he was, standing near the entrance, looking nothing like the polished man I once knew. His suit was wrinkled, his hair a mess, and he had dark circles under his eyes. He looked pathetic. I considered ignoring him, but then I thought, why not? Let's see just how low he's fallen. So, I went downstairs. The moment he saw me, his eyes lit up with hope. Sophia, thank you for coming. I crossed my arms. I didn't come for you. I came to see just how desperate you really are. He flinched, but quickly recovered. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, he began. But I lost everything. My job, my money, my reputation. People at work, they found out about everything. I had no choice but to resign. I raised an eyebrow. And that's supposed to make me feel bad for you? I don't want pity, he said quickly. I just want a second chance. I burst out laughing. You have to be kidding me. I've changed, he insisted. I see now how much I took you for granted. I should have appreciated you more. I was blinded by my own ego. But I know now that you're the only person who ever truly cared about me. I tilted my head. Tell me something, Ethan. If I hadn't taken everything from you, if Lily hadn't left you, would you still be here? He opened his mouth, then closed it. He didn't have an answer. I stepped closer, looking him dead in the eye. You don't regret what you did. You regret losing. Sophia, please, he whispered, reaching for my hand. I stepped back.
No.
You don't get to touch me. You don't get to act like the victim. You're here because you have nowhere else to go. And I am not your safety net. His shoulders slumped, his entire body deflating. So, that's it. I gave him a small smile.
Oh no, Ethan.
That's not it. I reached into my bag and pulled out an envelope. His eyes widened, almost hopeful. Is this? I tossed it at him. That's a restraining order. Stay away from me. His mouth fell open. You. Goodbye, Ethan, I said, turning on my heel and walking back inside. I didn't look back. That was the last time I saw him. Later, I found out through mutual acquaintances that Ethan had moved to a small apartment in Houston, struggling to make ends meet. Word spread that he tried to get another job in finance, but no firm wanted to hire a man with a reputation like his. His once pristine image was shattered. As for me, I thrived. I expanded my real estate business, traveled, and finally lived the life I had always deserved. And for the first time in years, I was truly happy. But the best part? The fact that Ethan would wake up every single day knowing that the woman he tried to destroy was the one who completely ruined him. And honestly, that was the best anniversary gift I could have ever received. It's funny how life works. 5 years ago, I stood at the altar, looking at Ethan with love in my eyes, believing I had found my forever. Now, I barely remembered what that love had felt like. What once seemed like an unbreakable bond had turned into nothing more than a lesson. After everything, I never heard from Ethan again. Not directly, at least. Occasionally, a friend or acquaintance would mention him in passing, telling me how he was struggling, how no one in the industry would hire him after the scandal. Apparently, he had tried to start his own financial consulting business, but it never took off. His past followed him everywhere. The very same reputation he once cared so much about had now become his greatest curse. I never wasted my time thinking about him. I had my own life to live, my own success to focus on. My real estate business thrived, expanding into multiple cities, including Los Angeles and Miami. I started traveling more, seeing the places I had always dreamed of, but never had the freedom to explore. I spent my nights with friends, laughing, drinking, and celebrating the life I built for myself, a life that had nothing to do with Ethan. But the biggest surprise? The one that truly made me believe in karma? It happened almost a year after our divorce. One morning, I was having brunch at a beautiful cafe in San Diego, sipping my coffee and enjoying the fresh ocean breeze. Life had been peaceful, exactly how I wanted it. Then, just as I was about to leave, I heard a voice I hadn't expected to hear ever again. Sophia? I turned around and there he was.
Ethan.
But he wasn't the man I used to know. His suit was wrinkled, his hair slightly unkempt, and there was a tiredness in his eyes that I had never seen before. He looked small. Smaller than I had ever imagined him being. For a moment, I just stared at him, debating whether I even wanted to acknowledge his existence. But then curiosity got the best of me. I tilted my head and gave him the smallest of smirks.
Ethan. Wow.
What a surprise. His eyes searched mine, like he was trying to find something familiar in me, something that would remind him of the woman he used to control. But I wasn't her anymore. You look different, he said, his voice unsure. I chuckled. I'd hope so. I've been living my best life. I took a sip of my coffee, watching his expression shift. Regret. Jealousy.
Defeat.
I heard about you, he admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. You're doing really well. I am, I said simply. A pause. Then softly, I miss you. That made me laugh. Actually laugh. Loud enough that people at nearby tables glanced over. That's cute, Ethan. Really? But you don't miss me. I leaned forward slightly, lowering my voice. You miss the life you had when you were with me. You miss the power, the comfort, the success. And now that you've lost it all, you think you can just waltz back in? I shook my head, smiling. It doesn't work that way. He exhaled sharply, his shoulders slumping. I know I screwed up, he muttered. But I held up a hand. Let me stop you right there. I don't need your apologies. I don't need anything from you. He looked down, his fingers tapping against the table, struggling to find the right words. But it didn't matter. There was nothing left to say. I stood up, grabbing my purse. Goodbye, Ethan. I hope you figure things out for yourself. And then, just for fun, I leaned in slightly and whispered, Oh, and by the way, you're right. I do look different. I look happy. With that, I turned and walked away, feeling lighter than ever. That was the last time I ever saw him. I never needed revenge to feel whole, but it was satisfying to know that he had destroyed his own life. And me? I had built mine back up stronger than ever. Because in the end, the best revenge isn't ruining someone else's life. It's making yours so good that they can't stand to watch you succeed. And that's exactly what I did.